Hey, I'm Grant Miller. This is my wife, Stephanie. Probably know us from our four crazy kids that aren't with us that were usually running around the hub after church, Levi at 8, Lucas at 6, James 4, and Madeline 1. But we're sitting here today at a place that's kind of near and dear to our hearts. It's called The Dock. It's off 56th and Division. And it's a big part of what the last couple of years of our life has been and what our story and walk by faith has kind of become with Christ.
So how we ended up getting here kind of starts back in, 2019. We were wanting to get a larger house, get a little bit more lots, get a larger lot, because our house that we sat on was quite small, didn't really have much room for the kids to run around and play. And one day after church, we had looked at a house in Byron Center and saw that there was empty land, and we were curious about that and wanting to know if that was available. And so we kind of went down that process of inquiring and figuring out what could be, and ultimately ended up kind of pursuing this area in Byron Center. And throughout this process, kind of one of the big prayers that we had is that we would find families that we could do life with. And so we moved to this neighborhood and slowly start meeting families that lived around us. And through various different interactions had met two very specific families.
We were very intentional of wanting to grow a community that could go on mission together. Mm-hmm. And we would host, when you move into a new neighborhood, how do you meet people? We were doing things like pulling people together for pumpkin carving or block parties and different things like that, just to organically meet people where we were at. Mm-hmm. And then gravitated towards a couple different ones and really grew close connections with them.
Grant and I, in our family, we had talked about how we wanted to grow together as not only individuals, but together as a family. Grant has done various different Bible studies on his own and with other people, whether that's through Corinth or outside of Corinth. I've done different things at different times as well, but we wanted to make sure that we were engaging together as a family and getting the kids involved. Through organic interactions with our neighbors and coming together, it kind of naturally happened.
As we got, a year into us living in the house, we had an evening where one of the guys, Tim, came over, and just he and I were sitting in the driveway in front of our little solo stove and just talking, and he had asked me kind of a casual question of hey, are you in a Bible study? And at the moment, I wasn't. I said, no, but I would love to be. I would love to start one up. And he said, yeah, we gotta talk to Brad. Let's, with the three of us, see what we can do to kind of get one off the ground. Well, that quickly evolved into, honestly, just something that was a complete blessing from God. It quickly evolved into a group of 10 guys from 9 different churches that would get together on Monday nights and just talk with one another, refine one another, and it was just really good for me individually and my growth, but it wasn't checking our box of the way we moved to Byron to want to intentionally be growing with each other closer to God as well as with our kids closer to God. And so we acknowledged that about a year after, we were in I was in the Bible study with the guys. There was one night afterwards that I kind of held, Brad and Tim late in Tim's kitchen, and we had a conversation where I said, think of our families, the 6 of us, the spouses. All of us have different skills, giftings, professions. We all have different networks of friends. We all have different, the 3 families go to different churches. We all, different jobs. We've got so much at our fingertips that if we just put it towards something, we can make a really big difference. And I kind of challenged the guys, like, think about what that could be. Because as Stephanie and I were talking, we were still staying true to that mission of we want to find a way to get on mission together with our family and with other families. And so Tim had brought up, hey, when we lived in Kansas City previously, we had done a bed delivery with this nonprofit organization called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. We could look into something like that.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace is a national organization that focuses primarily on making sure that kids have a bed to sleep in, that they are not sleeping on the floor, and that they have a safe space for them to get a good night's sleep. And when Grant came home with that, there were a lot of things that we were initially talking through of potential challenges and obstacles that could prevent us from moving forward with this. One is we have 4 kids, and 3 of them play soccer. And while that's only 12 weeks out of the year, it does take up time. And then Grant's in a Bible study, and he also does fantasy football. And there's a lot of things that take up a chunk of our time in various different seasons. And in order to start this chapter, we would have to figure out a location, how to source the wood, how to organize different events, how to build the beds, how to get the tools, how are we going to pay for this, how are we going to get funding. And there were a lot of questions and concerns about the amount of time it would take, because all of the families are working full-time in some capacity.
I think my first question was like, are beds an actual need in West Michigan?
Yeah.
And I think one of your early concerns was like, I want to do a mission to introduce people to Jesus, not necessarily to run a small business.
Yeah. Because it was going to be a lot of upfront work, because we would need to basically fundraise to kind of get the tools, to get a spot to hold everything. And it was potentially going to be a big investment up front, and I didn't know if we had the capacity to be able to do that. And that's kind of when Tim looked into contacting Sleep in Heavenly Peace to see if there's anybody local that could kind of give us tips and tricks and pointers on how to start. And we'd actually did a call with a woman who, I can't remember, if I remember correctly, might have been in Ann Arbor, on the other side of the state. And we had talked with her, and she gave us some helpful information. But then at some point, Tim got connected with Craig, who is local here in, what is this, Kelloggsville?
Kelloggsville. It was ultimately like we were talking to this lady in Ann Arbor saying, we want to learn more. We're contemplating starting up our own chapter. And she said, what you should do is look in your backyard. There's a chapter that's nearby in East Kentwood that's drowning at the moment, that needs a little bit of support. You should see if there's chemistry between you and them, because you may not need to start up a chapter from scratch. You may be able to join an existing chapter that has definitely found an area of need.
So kind of over winter this past year, we met with Craig and his team that is already established here locally.
Craig is the chapter president for Sleep in Heavenly Peace in Kelloggsville.
And so he brought their team, and we met at our neighbor Liz and Brad's house, and kind of got introduced to them for the first time and understand what they were doing, what their need was, how we could help if we wanted to join them on what they had already kicked off, and how our families could kind of work together with them.
Yeah, and so what they explained to us was that this organization, this nonprofit organization, was very multifaceted in what the needs were. They had people who ran social media to either get the word out or to market, so to speak, for the materials. They needed people to call people who submitted an application for a bed. So the way that it works, anybody within our zip code range can go to Sleep in Heavenly Peace online, submit an application. That application comes through to the team if it's within our zone. And they need people to reach out and make contact with the people who submit applications. We call it vetting, to make sure that it's a person of need, and that they are within, the area that we're responsible for. There's people that need to coordinate building the beds. We buy all the lumber as just from Lowe's, and then we have to fabricate the beds, assemble the beds themselves. We do that through day or a couple hour long events where we build a bunch of the subcomponents. Once the beds are built or the subassemblies are built, we need somebody to manage inventory, somebody to pair up where we do have a need from a certain child. Usually we target kids that are between 3 and 18 years old for the type of beds that we deliver, both singles and bunks. We need somebody to pair up the right type of bedding with it, somebody to coordinate, reach out to that person and schedule a delivery, and then people to actually go and deliver the beds, bring them there, assemble the bed in its final state, and have the opportunity to connect with the family that was in need. So as we were looking through that conversation that evening, and as we reflected as a group of 3 families following it kind of became clear that God had a hand in bringing the families together, because we gravitated towards different areas that would have been supporting it. All of our families kind of prayed on it, talked about it, and said, you know what, this is a step we should take. This is a step that we should move forward with and see what happens. From there, we started doing a couple early builds just at, Tim and MJ's property. We engaged with some of the pre-scheduled builds that Sleep in Heavenly Peace had, and we just started finding areas that we could plug in and help in some way, shape, or form. And in joining their core team, essentially we doubled their core team, because I think there were 5 people, and so between the 6 of us as spouses, we brought the ability for them to not be so much on overdrive. We were able to engage the kids right off the bat with some of the early build events, which was exciting for them. They any chance you give a little boy an opportunity to use a power tool, they get pretty excited about it. And so we just started getting closer with God, getting closer with these families, and serving together. And you kind of saw momentum build throughout the entire organization. And you fast forward, to where we are today, kind of 6 months into that journey. And you look at what started with 3 families, kind of expanded into a group of 11 or 12 core team. That group of 11 or 12 as a core team has activated 250 to 300 different people that have come in to help volunteer with the builds or with deliveries or things like that. And ultimately, this year, we've been able to put 264 kids into the first bed that they've ever owned. For context, this chapter had originally started up in 2022. They did 22 beds that year, and they did 111 the year following. So we, within 6 to 9 months of 2024, have already more than doubled that. Mm-hmm. And it's just been so evident that God kind of put us in this space or in this zone for each of us to grow individually, have different experiences connecting with people who have really real needs in our local community, and be able to unite for something that's a cause that's bigger than just ourselves.
It's been beneficial for our kids, because there's not every ministry that you, bring your kids along with you, and that was really important to us. So the kids have been involved with us from the very beginning, and each of the 2 families that we kind of do life with in our neighborhood The Peters have 2 kids, and the Josephs have 2 kids, and we have 4. And all of them are roughly in the same age group. So they all get along well and enjoy spending time together. So when we do builds, they're all able to help in a different capacity, whether that's picking up lumber and moving it from one spot to another, whether that's using the power tools and drilling things, or helping in one way, shape, or form. And then when we're here at the dock, they're able to help move some of these components that are behind us, some of the bed frames, play with each other. When we have meetings, all the kids come and they kind of congregate and mostly play while we talk about what's next and kind of the plans for the future. So it really is experience, and that's really what we wanted.
So in terms of what we've learned or how we've grown throughout this, I think for me personally, it was pretty eye-opening how much of a need is, like real need exists as close to us as it does. The first delivery that we went on was in a neighborhood that I essentially drive by every day for work. Never thought twice about what kind of need would exist in it. The other thing that really stood out to me, or I've really grown to appreciate, is how God created us to be in community with one another. Stephanie's really good at things that I'm not. The families that we're in this with, the people that were here at the dock and working with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, everybody's got kind of a diverse set of gifts. But when you bring that entire body together in some sort of effort that tries to advance Christ's kingdom, it's really cool to be a part of, because you really see him go to work.
Yeah, I think one of the blessings of doing this with our families is talking about different families, different experiences, and helping our kids get a larger picture of life beyond our home and our community. Just being able to have more of an open dialogue with our kids about different walks of life and how their home life might be different than ours, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. And talking about what language we use and what we might see when we go into a different place, and what we might, smell when we go into a different place. But how we, perceive that information and how we act on that information has been helpful conversations to have with the kids, and it has far exceeded our expectations, especially going into that first delivery. Not once did I hear one of our kids, talk about things or say something that would have been rude or inconsiderate, or say something to the other families. They were very helpful and kind and wanting to participate in getting these beds built. So it's been a really nice experience with the kids. And kind of on our second delivery, the little girl who was 4, who was receiving this bed, was so excited and wanted to participate in building her own bed. So Grant helped her with the tools to be able to help actually assemble the bed, and the kids were helping to assemble alongside of her. And once we got to the bedding, she wanted to help unpackage the bedding and get the bedding on, and there was a stuffed animal that came with it, so she wanted to lay that out. And there are local churches and women's groups that create quilts, and that they have donated these handmade quilts to go along and be packaged up with the bedding that came with it. So the little girl was laying the quilt out on the bed, and it was just a nice experience to all kind of blend together and work together and allow her to be, excited along with us and engaging in this process. And it was really fun to watch that experience. And she had little beads in her hair, and it was braided. And our youngest Maddie was like trying to touch them because she was so excited about it. And I think James had told her he liked her beads, and it was just a fun experience for them to be able to engage. And it was so fun because at the very end, she had told her mom, like, I want chips. And we were kind of like, okay, like,
hard work, gotta eat.
Go have some potato chips. And we were on our way down the stairs to leave the house, and she comes out with this box of chips, and she's like, the grandma that she lives with,
Yep.
had said, like, she really wants to give you guys chips and like thank you for being here. And so she gave each of the kids a bag of chips, and it was so fun.
Boys were
and the
thrilled.
boys,
Oh,
like,
my
the whole
goodness,
car
really
ride home, like, that was so nice of her to give us chips. And they were, so excited about, that bag of chips. And so it's a fun process, and it's nice to be able to watch the kids grow and learn through this experience as well of, different living situations, how to be grateful and thankful, how to share love and kindness with others in different situations, and then also to receive kindness from others, while we're assembling a bed.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids have mentioned that they have really enjoyed the process, really like being able to help others and, show God's love to them. And they just feel very thankful and joyful to be able to be a part of this experience.
Yeah, not everything is completely perfect along the way. You missed James's comment in the first delivery where we walked in, and the first thing he says is, "Why is it so dirty in here?" And I was like, "It's okay, James. This is fine." But then, you get different experiences with different families that you get to walk into their world and their environment. The first one at the tail end of the delivery, the mother, I don't even think she said thank you. It was just, you've delivered a bed, you can walk out the door. With the second one, they were far more open to hearing about us, what we were doing, why we were involved with it, why we were going out of our way to bring our kids to somebody else's house to assemble a bed. And it allowed us the opportunity to kind of share a little bit of our faith, to pray with them through the end of it. And I mean, we could go blue in the face with the number of times that we've said to our kids, just be kind to other people, or, treat others the way you want to be treated. But when I asked Levi, our 8-year-old, this morning, what have you learned from this? And when he says something along the lines of, it's better to give than to get. You can see the application or the learning kind of taking root. Or when you can recognize that, like, oh, you really enjoyed receiving the blessing of a bag of chips in return for what you went out and did to bring light into this world by giving, Sadia a bed that she otherwise didn't have, is just, it lands home a lot more for them. And that's been a blessing that's been far more valuable than any time or effort or anything that we've put into this. So that's just been something that's above and beyond what we could have ever hoped or prayed for in the first place.
For our families and kind of where we see ourselves in the future, it's not necessarily about the beds. It's not necessarily about sleep in heavenly peace. For our family specifically, it was, we really wanted to be a family on mission. So we wanted to make sure that we were engaging our children in whatever service work we ended up getting involved in. And we also wanted to do that in a community setting. And it just so happened that right now we got involved with 2 sets of neighbors who had a connection to Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And so for the foreseeable future, like, we see our family engaging in Sleep in Heavenly Peace and helping kids get a bed and get off the floor and have a good night's sleep. Our goal as a family is still to serve together. So at some point, if that's not in Sleep in Heavenly Peace, that's okay, as long as we are getting our kids involved and working together as a family and figuring out how we can help those around us. I'd say that's the most important thing to us.
Yeah, seasons go by quickly, but really, you've taught me this of like leaning into the season that you're in and making the most out of every moment that you're there is where you really truly see God and God at work. So for us, we're leaning into this within the current season to try to grow closer to Him. You could ask chapter goals of how many beds do you want to be delivering on an ongoing basis, but I've consistently said to our team, like, if you could tell me that we could deliver 10 beds and really land home and talk to 10 people about Jesus, that's far more valuable than 250 other exchanges where there's just not that opportunity to share the faith. So obviously you can't just single that out. You can't vet that out in a phone call. So you've got to kind of scatter that seed, the good news, as much as you can. And this is just the vehicle that we're kind of doing that through in the current season. And honestly, it's been a huge blessing. So I think our goal is to share our faith, both so our kids can see us living it out, that, being a Christian doesn't mean compartmentalizing it to a Sunday or just mentally saying or verbally saying that you believe something. It shapes your life. It shapes how you carry yourself in everything that you do, whether that's at home, how you play, how you work, how you have fun.
So for anybody else that is looking to take their next step by faith and figure out where you can move into and make an impact in the community around us, what worked for us was just organic next steps. It wasn't anything, I guess, crazy or wild. It was just organic conversations and relationships with people in our community. And I guess specifically for us, we wanted to do life, I guess, close to home, or starting it close to home. So it was people that we would naturally see frequently so that we could organically create those relationships with them. So that worked well for us. Just actively participating in our local neighborhood, having our kids out all the time, engaging with other kids and making friendships with them, and then making friends with their parents, and finding that we enjoy similar things and have similar values and similar life goals and missions. And everything kind of happened very naturally, organically. And through that, it was, hey, like, do you want to do something more? Like, do you want to be involved in serving the community, and how? So I would say for next steps is organically see where you're at in your life, what people you spend a lot of time with, or places you spend a lot of time with, things that you are naturally already engaged in, and then figure out a way that you can kind of serve others a little bit more through what you're already doing. It doesn't have to be this huge life shift or a grand life event. It can be something that you're already naturally doing, so that it's not something that you fall off the bandwagon because you've overcommitted yourself, you're overextending, and it doesn't naturally just kind of flow with what you're already doing. So I would just say examine your current situation and see where you can just start serving a little bit more.
Yeah, don't let perfect get in the way of better. I mean, it's going to be cliche, but every step or every marathon starts with a single step. Bam. And I know that, like, Jared will hate this part because he hates like the 4 bullet point steps. But for us, it was like, find people you really enjoy spending time with and have fun with. Figure out a way to center that relationship on Jesus. Pray together about where He might be calling you. And then go. Like, it can be in anything. There's so many different nonprofit organizations that are in the local area. There's anything. You could start a nonprofit very, very easily as well. You
But
can
it
just
doesn't
go.
even need to be that
No,
big.
it doesn't.
Like
It could be
when
mowing
we
a neighbor's
first
lawn. It could be.
started out, we organized like a pumpkin carving event at the local pavilion, and like met neighbors that way. But yeah, you can rake somebody's lawn. you
Yeah.
can.
There's a number of different things that you can do, but it's just trying to focus on what you can do to bring more of God's kingdom into earth and be faithful each step along the way. If you're not sure where God is calling you specifically, I mean, you have an open invitation if you ever want to come to build a bed or deliver a bed with us. Obviously, we'll take anybody who's interested in doing it. Just come up and talk to us, and even if it's a one-time thing to see how you like it, that's completely fine. Open invitation, very little challenge. Outside of that, I think what helped us figure out what that next step was two things. The first of which, a lesson that like you taught me, we were overbooked back in 2019 to where there was golf league, consistory, fantasy football, social events, work, extra hours at work. It was just so much packed in to where we didn't have the space to let God move in our life. So we backed off to give ourselves the capacity to be spontaneous, to connect, to not always be in such a rush. And through slowing down a little bit, God was able to get a little bit more of a message through. We started reflecting on what our purpose was as a family, what skills and passions partnered up with what network we had exposure to, the experiences we had along the way. And at the intersection of those points was where we kind of found our mission. And again, like, nothing in this life is permanent. We leaned into this season and have just been trying to be faithful and responding to what God is doing. And each person in our congregation has a unique set of experiences, has a unique passion or skill set or community connection. Reflect on those areas. And when you find the intersection of those points where God can really let the gifts that he's given you shine through, lean into it and take a step. He's not going to let you down.